Hey, what's up, everyone? How's it going? Welcome back to Agave and Cactus Talk. Today, we're going to be doing an episode based on a question I actually got from one of my clients that I consult for, a small farmer in Northern California. And he's dealing with some, wild pig pressure, kind of like warthogs or that type of animal, and they're just really messing with his farm and stuff, right? So he asked me, I'm over here dealing with this pest, and I gave him a bunch of advice and which, by the way, the advice was he needs way more guard dogs, more taller and stronger fencing. He had like T-posts with just like razor wire. I recommended one like 2-inch 6-foot or 7-foot poles, so you got a 5 or 6 foot fence in concrete, each of those poles with some chain link, and then you're gonna put basically a fencing material like a fabric, kind of like a 1/4-inch squares down on the other side of the fence, the inside fence, and then you could put stone down. And that's been actually something that's been working really well for him. So he's been grateful for that help a bit, the design we came up with for that portion of the farm. And wild pigs are becoming a bigger problem in Texas, Northern California, the Southwest, and the South. And they're actually probably going to be, I was telling my homie the other day, that they're probably going to be the number one threat for agave farms within the next 10 years, just because of the amount of population that these wild pigs have and how fast they grow and how much damage they do, So, to give you an idea, in one day, a herd of 20, 30 wild pigs can destroy, a 10-acre farm. So, agave and cactus. So, it's something that you really want to prepare for if you're in an area where they've been spotted or they're already an invasive species. And every county in California or your state will be a little bit different. But anyways, he was dealing with this pest, right, the wild pigs, and he came to me and he asked me the question, what pests do I deal with, and we went through a long conversation in a consultation call, because he was just telling me, all the pests that I've had experience with on my farm, if I could tell him about those experiences, so that when it came for him to encounter those experiences or those pests, he would not be inexperienced, right? Which is a great thing, in an hour or two, you pay me $100, $200 and I can teach you, years of pest experience, and then you don't deal with the issue. I think it's a pretty wise investment. He was pretty intelligent in that. But anyways, getting to the point, the title of this podcast will be, what pests do I deal with on my agave and cactus farm in the Mojave Desert, or something along that line, And I'm going to split this up into animals, insects, and fungi. You get me? Because it could be a bunch of different ones. Or let's do animals and just fungi or insects. How about that? We'll split it into two groups. So, I farm in, the farm, that I mainly have a lot of stuff at, they're in High Vista, which is a suburb of Lancaster, California, which is LA County, the most, northeast city in LA County. I chose that specifically because I like living in the middle of nowhere. And literally I live in the middle of nowhere. There's like nobody but narcos around me, which is, like the Wild Wild West. I like it. But anyways, they don't bother me, I don't bother them, you know. Anyways, you know, over the years I've dealt with a lot of different pests. So I think you guys on the podcast have heard this story before, but the first, I think, like 500 Opuntia ficus indica that I planted were completely eaten by jackrabbits. Like, no chance within a few days. You know, like I planted 500 within 2 days. On a Tuesday, I come back on Friday, they're fucking done, ripped through the roots. And I was just like, God damn. Like, you know, it's kind of sad for the cactus, but I was just also like, wow, there's a lot of wildlife here. That means, you know, this land is not as worthless as I thought, you know, because jackrabbits, pretty cool animals. And then, so, first step was like, all right, well, I got to try to fight these jackrabbits, right? That's my first pest that I encountered. I put up a 4-foot fence of welded wire, which now if I redid it, I would put a 5 or 6 foot fence. You know, you could use T-post, or you could use, galvanized steel post in concrete. Either one is fine. And then use chain link tied up with rebar or steel wire, like galvanized wire or whatever. And the reason I recommend that is because at 5 feet, you get a lot less coyote pressure that wants to hop the fence if you have a few dogs. You're not going to have jackrabbit pressure that's coming into your fence. And then you're going to minimize all the ground squirrel pressure except to the smallest ones that could fit through the fence. So, you know, the fence was the first step that I did, right? And then I added a 1 foot, wide roll of that 1/4 inch mesh steel fiber fencing. And then on the inside, so the jackrabbits, if one got so smart to dig and try to come onto the other side, it couldn't do it. Also keeps my dogs from digging out. Although many of them could just hop the fence, because I have many portions that are 4 foot, hence why I say I would build it 5 or 6 foot. The reason I say I would go with chain link instead of welded wire is because chain link is going to last a much longer time. Welded wire, if you have goats, if it's like a far fence, it's fine. But if it's a fence within their like chill area, they're going to rub up against it and destroy it within, 3-4 years. A chain link will last you several decades, Even if you don't want it to bend with the goats rubbing up against it, what I do is I put at the bottom and at the top recycled wood or plywood or bender board, and then tie that with rebar to the fence to just act as a vertical brace, When they build chain link fence, they put that too, but, that's the whole, that's why people don't want to put no more fucking chain link fences, man, because they put those vertical and the corner and the bottom bars, and they're so expensive because steel's so pricey, I don't give a fuck about all that. I use recycled stuff for those braces, but then, the good stuff is just a good steel stake, galvanized or T-post, and then some chain link, So yeah, the first pest, defeated it with the fence, right? That was great. And then I lowered my coyote pressure, because before the coyote could literally fucking just hop over because it was a 4-foot fence. It was so easy for him. And then with a 5-foot fence, once I started having dogs, piss all over and chill all over, they didn't want to fucking hop that fence anymore. And people tell me in NorCal that they have an 8-foot fence and the coyotes still hop it. So I think a lot of that is also due to not having guard dogs. I think you could get away with a 5 or 6 footer for the coyotes if you have some guard dogs. So that's going to be our second pest. I did not know coyotes fucking... Well, let me think about the jackrabbit real quick, right? So we defeat them with the fence. And what I started realizing is, all my goats, as they're going through the outside of my farm, like my farm that I mainly have fenced up is like a 10-acre and 2 5-acre sections, and then those are split up as well into a bunch of different lots, or like pens you could say, or lots or whatever. But I have like 200 acres right there in between me and my families, right? So essentially, the goats are moving all throughout this, and then before I used to see a small amount of jackrabbits. Maybe in one day I would see 5 or 6 of them. Now in one day I could see fucking 30-40 jackrabbits. And it's because I work a lot at night too, and that's kind of when they're out, especially now in the summer. Whoo, you be just walking at night through the creosote scrub areas, and you'll just see fucking 20 of them just dash, boom, boom, boom. And the goats are building up the natural forage for the jackrabbits and the gophers and stuff, and that, ideally over time, maybe I don't need fencing, but for now, at least they're getting fed and they're staying the fuck away from my shit, right? So, okay, now to our second pest that I have here in the Mojave Desert on my agave and cactus and fucarea, desilarion, blah, blah, blah. Coyotes, right? So my wild dogs, coyotes, and I'm going to include wild dogs in this too. So the coyotes, my dogs, I have packs usually in between, 7 to 12 on the farm. And that's usually due to like half the dogs I have are just street dogs that like I feed, and they're like my homies. They guard the ranch, they guard the animals, they're cool as fuck. I trained them and everything, but they're street animals. They still bounce, but it's all good. I vaccinated them and shit, so, and they go do whatever they need to do. They come back, I don't know where they go, whatever. But then, I know they're safe, at least they're fed and shit. But the other ones, they're also street dogs, but they've become loyal to the farm. So, point is, I got a big pack. They're always hunting fucking gophers, or I don't have gophers, I have ground squirrels. Always hunting the ground squirrels and the rats. And I got rats that have come in the alfalfa bales, which are the fucking, or I get, I'm bringing up all these other pests. Let me stay on the coyote and wild dogs, right? So the coyotes with a 5 or 6 foot fence, or even down to a 4-foot fence, they're not coming up in my fenced area where I have a bunch of plants and stuff, because now I have a big pack of dogs, right? And they piss all over. I'm sure the coyotes can smell that shit. And now, actually, once again, the coyote population has boomed because the jackrabbit population has boomed. And the coyotes are doing what my dogs do, which is burrowing and shit, creating, pissing everywhere, boosting up all the ecology. And those coyote populations are dope because they burrow, right? And they create all these little holes like my dogs. Boom, that's where the fucking burrowing owls, which are close to being endangered in California and the Southwest, that's where they fucking make nests and chill and shit, right? Which, once again, it's like all a fucking reinforcing, like, little, tech or traditional ecological knowledge cycle, right? It's like this little tech cycle is just reinforcing. It's like boom, 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 because then the fucking owls come, they're fucking eating all this fucking rats and the mice and the ground squirrels and shit, and then now you got all their droppings, and it's a whole shebang. It's dope. But anyways, so coyotes, they don't fuck with my shit because I got the fence and the dogs, right? I don't really try to shoot them or do anything like that anymore. When I first was here, like, I've been here at this farm for like almost 10 years now. The first year or two, I'm not gonna lie, I did shoot a couple of them, but it's like, then I realized that coyotes have a way better ecological value alive than dead to me. And, they actually regulate the jackrabbit population for me too, so I want them to fuck around, When they dig and stuff, I'm telling you, they burrow. This concept with the jackrabbits and the ground squirrels, they're allowing all the water to percolate deeper, oxygen to hit the roots, different materials to go underground. The ants take up those little tunnels and start taking all this shit from the top to the bottom and the bottom to the top. It's just legit. It's just legit, man. So, yeah, coyotes are dope. And the wild dogs is a crazy one. Because in my area, like, wild dogs I don't think is crazy as fuck in a lot of areas. But in my areas, I'm close to LA, a big city, close to Lancaster, big city, Pondale, big cities. And these motherfuckers dump dogs. That's where all my dogs probably fucking came from. I've only adopted a few of them, you know. It's crazy as fuck. But then, anyways, the wild dogs are fucking crazy. You know, in my area, so I'm in High Vista, right? 10 minutes, the closest town to the south is Lake Los Angeles. And in that area, there was like this old lady walking, and a fucking group of wild dogs just came up and fucking killed her, you know? Like, you could Google that shit. Look up, like, Lake LA, wild dog, lady killed or some shit, you know? Something like that. You know, with the AI, it'll pop up now. But that shit was crazy, and ever since that happened like a couple years back, I always been watching out for it, because ever since the pandemic, people got a shit ton of dogs, and then they started abandoning them, and then they went up. And the other thing that happens all the time is they raid all these narcos, and they have a bunch of guard dogs. So then, you know, when they raid the narcos, that shit is like fucking out of fucking movie. You see ponies and horses and fucking dogs and burros. All these motherfuckers go wild, you know, which is, you know, conspiracy here. But they go on TV when they raid all these foods, and they say they rounded up all these animals and shit. But it's like, I don't know, man. I feel like a lot of them are getting away from you fuckers, because I see them all the time. And these packs of wild dogs, they sustain themselves eating all those motherfucking animals that people just dump. All the wild horses, wild burros, wild fucking other dogs. They become packs and shit. So I have seen packs between 5 to 15. That shit is insane. And, you know, one time my pack of 12 took on a pack of fucking 15. And not gonna lie, marked them all. But, you know, that stuff you really got to be cautious for in these areas. You know, if you're close to a big city and you live in the middle of nowhere, can't be just walking without, you know, a little something, you know, because these fools will jump you if they see you weak. Wild dogs, they don't fear humans like coyote. Coyote, you scream at them, you know, you show them the little 1911, little 9mm, boom, it's gone, you know. But a wild dog, no fear like that for humans. And my point is, my guard dogs keep the wild dogs away, much like the coyotes in all those ways. But it's just an extra threat that you should watch out for in the northeastern portion of LA County, which is also in the Mojave Desert, right? That shit is wild. And these wild dogs are just like coyotes, and they try to eat your spineless cactus, right? That's the other thing. The coyotes, before I had the you know, fence in all the areas, they would come in and eat my spineless cacti. They don't like the spine stuff, surprisingly, of the opuntias. But then it's so freaking weird, because the coyotes supposedly eat the echinocactus subspecies Polycephalus and Xeranomedes. And I'm like, how the hell do they eat all this spine shit? What the fuck? But they must really like whatever's on the inside. And if you heard my podcast, there's a lot of medical benefits to those. You know, we call them biznagas in Mexico, but they're called barrel cacti in America. And each one has different compounds and everything, but really medicinal for us Mexicans. So maybe the coyote knows some shit we don't, you know. But anyways, coyotes, wild dogs, fucking crazy. That's how you stop them. Bunch of dogs, good ass fence, you know. Once in a while, scaring them, screaming at them. But don't try to kill them, you know. The wild dogs, you know, the only times I've let my dogs confront them is when they come into an area and they become a threat to my animals, like my goats or, you know, my puppies or anything that, you know, could potentially be eaten by them. So, you know, I let my dogs handle, but even then, you know, I will still reach and try to scare them before I let my dogs go for it, because I don't want them to get injured too. But sometimes, like I'm just saying, you know, you're herding the goats, and you know, you're over a hill and the goats are a little bit further, and then these wild dogs just sneak up on you, and then dogs go into action. You can't even stop the shit, you know. Animals are animals. But that's what a guard dog does, you know, what a livestock guardian dog does. My dogs are hybrid. They guard the ranch, and then when they go on foraging with the goats, they are livestock guardian, you know. I've trained them to be hybrids like that. But so yeah, the next pest, you know, we mentioned it. the fucking ground squirrel. This motherfucker is the worst, bro. I could not beat this motherfucker for years, man. And I would just lose constantly 20-30% of my shit. And people be thinking I'm lying. Look at the almond industry right now, losing fucking 20% of their shit to fucking rats. Like, nah, even the pros are fucking getting murked by the rats. So, you gotta think about rats in different, you know, not style, species or whatever. I don't know the fucking species. But, you know, you got little, what I call little, you know, mice or pack rats, which are going to come sometimes in your alfalfa, your three-way, whatever hay you have, sometimes grain. They just sneak in everywhere. They're hella small. You know, they may be 2 inches, 3 inches. Then you're going to have your ground squirrel. These guys could be, you know, 5 to maybe 9 inches, you know, significantly bigger. And then you just got normal-ass rats, you know, and those are kind of like a ground squirrel as far as size. But all three of them, you know, fuck with you in different ways, you know. So the pests that you know, fuck with the agave and cactus the most, surprisingly, the pack rats don't fuck with it. They try to go after all the grain that's dropped on the ground by the chickens, the geese, the ducks, the goats, whatever. They're pretty smart, actually. That's why it's hard to get them. But you know how I got them? Rabbits. Because now I farm rabbits, and the fucking pack rats used to go under all my fucking greenhouses, shade houses, and make little tunnels and hide under there, so my dogs couldn't get them. Whenever they left that, the population was controlled by my dogs eating them, right? But they always had those tunnels, and they could overwinter in those tunnels. Now my rabbits have little tunnel networks all over those fucking pens. Like, they're in one pen, but they got tunnels under all the pens. So the pack rats, I haven't seen them in a while. They just got all eaten by my dogs, I think. So I might have just solved that pest problem actually in real time, like this past week. But yeah. So the regular rats, those motherfuckers will try to go for some spineless cactus. Usually not spiked cactus or really spiky agave. You get me? But spineless cactus or spineless smooth leaf agaves like Desmetiana, Attenuata, Supreme, you know, these soft leaf motherfuckers, they love that shit. So you're gonna have to figure out a way to deal with them if you got rats, you know, kind of like the almond farmers, you know. And once again, at this size, the cats don't fucking get them. You're gonna need some dogs. My dogs tear those rats up. They love them because they know it's a nice little meal for them, you know. I give my dogs probably 80% of what they should be eating, because the other 20% they get it from just catching fucking ground squirrels, you know. So I try to let them get their diet, a good portion of it, from the, you know, the ground squirrels. And to be honest, that estimates you know, probably like a good 10-15% of it is also raw goat meat. But you know, that's a story for another day. But anyways, fucking so yeah, the dogs keep the ground squirrels in check. I would predict they can keep the larger rats and gophers in check, especially the terriers. Are we gonna have to start bringing terriers back to the farm? This shit is dope. We need, oh man, I want a fucking little 12-pack of terriers, man. That would be dope. But hope to see them on more farms and stuff, little by little, you know. It's gonna be dope. But yeah, okay, so all the 3 ratties right there, murked, right? We got them under control. And the ground squirrel, for the longest time too, in areas where my dogs didn't frequent, they were fucking with my shit, my agave a lot, and eating the core. And then that whole agave would die, obviously, which is a huge problem. So I tell people now, I planted a lot of really, really fast growing, like my fastest growing opuntias, right next to those agave, so that I can basically use them as a trap plant. So the ground squirrel goes for instance, Opuntia litoralis or Opuntia reina instead of my agave, because it's much more full of water and nutritious, you know. And that protects the agave. Because look, the cactus, say you got one pad, it could be eaten down to the ground, and that little piece that's in the ground will pop back up, and boom, that shit will make a tree again. You know, it eats a fuck. I got cactus that got a whole, like, basically, like if you think of a pad, right, like a circle, think of like a circle half the size just got punched through it, right? Like the ground squirrel literally just ate through it and went through the other side. I seen that shit happen, and then the cactus just grows back fine. They look super cool when that happens, you know. You can put your finger through it too and everything, take little pics. But yeah, use it as a trap plant. Whatever they eat, it doesn't matter because this shit grows so fast anyways. If anything, they're helping me manage it, you know. And sometimes they'll fuck with your plants sufficiently, or I guess significantly, when they're eating, that they knock over other pads. And that's why I don't even cut back pads anymore. I just go through the field as I'm checking up on the field with a little bucket, and I collect all the pads that the ground squirrels have dropped on the ground for me. So another benefit where I'm using the ground squirrels to, you know, now my benefit. I tell people I made them my private unpaid researcher interns, because wherever they dig and shit, I know it's compacted and it needs more amendments, you know. So I let them fucking figure out where I gotta throw the mulch and the compost and all that, you know. So they're my unpaid researchers. I love those guys. So yeah, those 3 pests, the rodents and stuff, murked. We got them under control now. Trying to think if there's other ones. So other big ones, I don't have them on my farm here in the Mojave Desert, but I guess I'll mention them right now while I think of some other ones I may have. Obviously, wild pigs, warthogs, those are going to be a huge issue. Roving cows, well, maybe that works. Roaming cows, bison, fucking, they love that shit, man. Cactus and agave, they'll eat that shit up. So you gotta have your stuff fenced if you're around neighbors that have, you know, that are ranchers. The deer, they fucking love that shit, you know. Bobcats, lynxes, they eat cactus that's spineless, and probably the smooth leaf agave too, if exposed to it sufficiently and they want some water. And if they start learning it, right, like if more and more of it's around, they probably know how to do it, to be honest, because to them it probably looks like a fucking Hespero yucca whippley, right, which looks like an agave. They probably just like, agave's agave, whatever, we eat this shit, eat the piña and the flower stalk and stuff, you know. Yeah, the bobcat, you know, those up in the mountainous areas around here in LA could be a real problem for ranchers, you know, and farmers. But then, yeah, I'm trying to think on my farm, I don't really deal with too many more pests on that side. Thinking. Well, I mean, you know, you deal with your wild sheep and your wild goats and burros and horses that, like I said, get dumped. But usually, you know, they get scared off by my dogs. And my dogs don't eat them or nothing, but they just, you know, go away somewhere else. So, you know, got that under control. That's not really an issue for me. I guess I'll go over to the plagues now. You know, the most destructive plagues, I guess I could start with these, right? Like agave weevil. So I've never got an agave weevil on plants that I've grown from seed, hijuelo, whatchamacallit, or that, sorry, this guy was being annoying in front of me. I'm driving over here on the 2. But, yeah, from seed and hijuelo, I've grown these plants before. Sorry, I got distracted again. So what I was saying is that the agave weevil, I've never gotten it on something that I've propagated, but because I recycle so much plants and I know how to identify it already, because I've seen it on so many other farms and, you know, sadly in so much other landscaping, like especially in landscaping trade, you know, it's rare to go to a landscape and not see agave weevil in the fucking landscape. That's how common it is. It's pretty fucking crazy. And a lot of the people's agaves that are dying, it's from weevil here in Los Angeles and in California, I suppose, as well. But anyways, so agave weevil, I'll find it in recycled stock, and I'll just burn it. Like, I'm just gonna put it that simple, you know. I have not found any fucking successful organic treatment for it. And the sad part is, in gardens, before I went chemical free in gardening, I used to treat it with like some crazy ass chemicals that were legal at the time, now are illegal, by the way, which a lot of the agave community complains about, actually, because they say they can't treat their agave pre and post treatment anymore with these crazy ass fucking chemicals, destroying them, the soil, the ecosystem, everything. So they can't use that chemicals anymore, and that was the only thing that sometimes worked. So you know, you're basically throwing poison, and sometimes it worked. It's pretty burnt. But anyways, haven't found any successful treatment for it. If I identify it on my farm, I will literally burn the fucking plant. As sad as it is, it could be a 500-pound piña. Is done for. I will burn it to the ground. That's just how it is, because this shit is so crazy. It spreads so easy. You know, people think that shit's only on agave tequiliana. I've observed it on over 4 dozen fucking agave. That's different species. So I know that it could go over very easily to other species and harm them as well, you know. So yeah, I just prefer to get rid of it rather than deal with it. Which, you know, I'm a polyculture. I got 100 different species of agave, cactus, and, you know, a handful of fucareas and dasylirians. I got so much biodiversity with the trees and shit that I don't trip so much. But if you find agave weevil and you're a monoculture and you have 100, 500, 1,000 acres of whatever agave, I mean, dude, you better start going to church, because you're low-key fucked. You know, as soon as it gets there, it will go everywhere, unfortunately. You know, there's been points in time in Jalisco's history where 20 to 40% of the agave tequiliana dies because of the weevil, or another pest or something, you know. And yeah, the weevil's a big threat. We're importing a bunch of espadín and tequiliana, and they can't screen every fucking plant. I believe we're importing different species of the weevil than the ones that are here in California, and it's just going to be a clusterfuck on those species. So that's why it's good to have biodiversity, because for instance, say I were to identify weevil on some of my plants, I would just destroy it. But I have so many other species, it's not a big deal. But if that's your only species and you have your fucking hundreds of acres of that shit, you're fucked. That's a real fucked situation to be in. You're gonna lose your whole crop, farm, potentially. Damn, fucking coffee, man. This shit's bomb. But yeah, so that shit, take it fucking serious, man. Agave weevil's crazy, man. My recommendation is just to get rid of the fuck out of it. I can stop its spread with a mullet oil, but that's really the only progress I've come up with, and even that is not the best. Maybe, you know, you stop it for a few more weeks, but then it really just fucks you hard. So it's more of a, I don't know, how do you call it, maybe not a preventative, as far as like maybe just prolonging getting fucked, which is not a solution at all. So yeah, the pest, the agave weevil's crazy, man. I don't know what to tell you. So agave and cactus can potentially get aphids, right? Perfect way to solve this is to plant nasturtium in between all those agave as a ground cover to lock in more nutrients, soil, water, all that, stop erosion. Those nasturtiums are all edible. The flowers, the seed, the fucking leaf, they taste like pepper. You can eat them in salads and shit. If you put them next to agave that has aphids, all the fucking aphids will go to nasturtium. And if you put them next to agave that don't have aphids, that is gonna get aphids somehow, it'll be the first one to get the aphids. It's a perfect trap plant, much like the opuntias that I was explaining to you, being trap plants for agave, right? You know, I haven't really seen aphids on cactus too much, but they definitely can come onto them. So, you know, aphids, though, easy to treat. Use a mullet oil. It's an organic, pesticide or fungicide, antibacterial. And all you got to do to make a mullet oil is take some leaves of Agave Moriana, grind them all up, whatever fucking way you want, and then let them ferment for 3 days in water, and then that water is going to be high saponin. You get me? And if you evaporate the water after a little bit, you get a concentrated form of that if you want. But if you're going to be spraying it directly, like as a foliar, just keep it like concentrated, just with the higher water, because then you can fill up a backpack sprayer, whatever fucking hand sprayer, and then you spray all your plants down that have these aphids, and it'll get rid of it. Amole oil also really good for mites. It's okay for cochineal. It gets rid of cochineal if it's at a not extremely infected. If it's extremely infected, it's kind of not so significant. Trying to think here. So yeah, obviously the mites, I see that a lot on agave. You could treat it with trap plants of using the nasturtiums and the same with the aphids. But yeah, the mites mostly affect agave. That's more of an agave thing. The cochineal, everybody thinks that's a cactus thing. But here's the thing. A lot of opuntia could get cochineal and live symbiotically with it, which means it could live right on it and nothing happens. Other opuntia, it gets murked. And one of those is Opuntia ficus indica. It just gets fucking destroyed if you don't harvest it on a consistent basis. But like for instance, Opuntia coccinellifera could grow with that no problem cochineal insects, and then nothing's happening. It just keeps growing. But the point I'm making here is that cochineal fucks some and not so much others. So agave, if it gets cochineal, you better start once again going to church and praying, man. That's a really fucked situation. Every agave species I know that has gotten cochineal goes to crap, man, unless it's treated with amole oil very early. So now I've learned to catch it, but before I just throw that shit away, to be honest with you. Especially, there's some that are even more susceptible to cochineal. The most susceptible species that I've seen for cochineal is actually Tequiliana, Espadin, and fucking what's that other motherfucker? Not a tequilada. What is it? It's like the one I like brought out from seed that I brought out like a super rare Aplanata. Aplanata is fucked if you get cochineal on. You might as well just burn them all. There's no hope for you there. I've seen it already on several fields. To give an example, one of them was an 8-acre field, all Aplanata. The other a 5-acre field, all Aplanata. Both completely destroyed by cochineal. One was in Mexico and one was here. The one that was here surprised the shit out of me, because I'm like, how do you even know about agave aplanata, let alone have a field do this shit? What the fuck? But it was like an ex-nursery guy, so I guess, one of his favorite agaves, he just decided to farm the shit out of it. But, it's crazy the consulting where, you hear that people are doing all this agave and cactus farming. But yeah, cochineal is fucked. If you get cochineal, start worrying, man. The mites, like I said, treat with amole oil. Should be alright, Mites could really fuck your shit, though. So that, once again, this is why you gotta be going through your plants every fucking week at the minimum. If you got greenhouses and you got, $1 million in production, bro, go in there every fucking day. You can't lose 100,000 plants, man. You gotta be smart about it. But anyways, the next pest, let's think about it. So we got aphids, mites, cochineal. We got let's see. Oh, I know what's up, man. Whitefly. Whitefly is pretty bad on agave, and I see it sometimes on cactus. I could get rid of it with amole oil. On agave, if it's treated early with amole oil, it'll handle that infestation. Again, amole oil, antibacterial, anti-fungicide, pesticide, right? But then this shit, man, if it gets too far along, once again, it could be one of those fucked moments where your agave just goes to complete shit. So try to make sure that you catch those early and treat it with some synthetic stuff. I guess if you're not like me and you're not a no-chem farmer and, you really don't give a fuck about organic and all this shit, just use whatever chemical you think might actually work. Like if you have experience with chemical stuff, I would reach out to a licensed pesticide applicator if you don't know what the fuck you're doing, though, because you could really fuck your shit up. Like you personally, like you can spray a lot of bad stuff, and if you don't know what you're doing, you might end up with, a bunch of health problems. So, you got to be real intelligent when you're spraying these chemicals. If you do go that route, I kind of just avoid them completely, so I don't have to fucking deal with all these fucking hazmat suits and all this protocol and stuff, but like for instance, when you spray pesticide, you gotta wear a hazmat suit, you gotta fucking wear double sock, double glove, fucking crazy ass mask. You gotta go home immediately, take a shower, put all that shit in the fucking, not in your house because it could poison your family. You gotta put that shit in like a fucking decontamination fucking bin so it could get decontaminated. They treat it as a hazmat, So I mean, what do you think it's doing to you, or your plants or your soil? But whatever, you do you, man. I'm just telling you, both sides, I guess. Obviously, if it works, maybe it could save your business one day. But don't try to abuse these chemicals. They just make your plants weaker and they go to shit fast. But an option's an option, Trying to think of other pests here that I've dealt with here in the Mojave Desert. A lot of those, aphids, mites, what do you call it? Cochineal. What else did I mention? Whitefly. That's all come from, once again, recycled plants. But because I know how to treat most of that already, I don't mind. I do a quarantine process and stuff when I recycle plants to make sure I don't infect my stock. And I always advise my clients as well, while I don't do any returns and stuff, if anything ever fucking comes plague, I always advise my clients to just fucking dispose of it, to get rid of the plague, first of all, not infect the rest of the plants that you have that are healthy. But say you have, 3 plagued plants or whatever that you discover, throw them away, burn them, get rid of that shit. I'll send you a second box with, instead of 3, I'll send you like 4 or 5, to make up for it too, and replace those as well. But my point is, that's the standard we nursery owners should be holding. You get me? I learned that from another, one of my homies that's in the nursery trade for like 20 years, and I think it's a good policy. I think it's a great policy there to institute if you run a wholesale nursery or plant trade or whatever, right? Trying to think here, what other pests? Obviously, a pest low-key technically could be a human, good fence, good dogs, security cameras, the whole shebang, my friends. That can definitely keep humans out. I mean, on my block, there's like 5 giant grows. It's like you got the Chinese, the Armenians, the Mexicans. Everybody always blames the Mexicans, but everybody's out there trying to get their little green rush on, And like I said, I don't give a fuck what they're doing as long as they don't fuck with my shit. But sorry, there's some crazy construction going on right there. The point that I was trying to make is that humans, relatively easy to stop them if, you got some deterrents and stuff like that, right? So I've never had a situation with any of those people or with anyone like, random crackhead or whatever showing up. I've never had any of that stuff happen. But, humans can be a pest too. If you're close to urban or if you're close to a place where, humans might be a pest, that's something to fucking, put in your little book as a pest and try to see how you can get rid of, not get rid of, don't go out and, murk them, but like, how to prevent them from destroying or messing with your crops or farm or animals or whatever, right? Like for instance, people, when they have a ranch up against a busy street, they make that fence much stronger, or they put signs, don't bother the livestock guardian dog, don't bother the animals, blah blah blah, make it happen. Well, yeah, we're at 45 minutes. I thought this was going to be like a 10-minute thing, but you know how it goes always with these fucking podcasts. Hope you learned some today. This isn't like an all-inclusive pest, list for agave and cactus and fucarea and destilirion, etc. But hopefully it's a cool starter for you to learn a little bit about some experience behind these pests and how to deal with them organically, and prevention. It's kind of like our health, human health, Prevention's always better than trying to treat it, when you get cancer already or some shit like that, right? It's always better at the beginning to try to figure that shit out to prevent it. But that's kind of how farming is too. So be wise in your research. Make sure it's peer reviewed, or coming from farmers, people that are actually doing this shit, and not just someone that's selling plants that hasn't been in the game multiple generations or doesn't have a lot of experience. But anyways, because there's a lot of those motherfuckers out there. But anyways, hope you learned some today. If you got any questions on pests that are specific to agave or cactus or fucarea, destilirion, etc., hit my ass up. I'll talk about them in a podcast. And I hope you learned some. Visit agaverocaliforniano.com if you want to buy any plants or learn about plants or read agave and cactus articles or just look at some cool agave and cactus plants. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Halloween's coming up. Hope you guys have, and the holidays and all that. And hope you guys are having a great, into the year, these last few months. And the year's not over. Go out there and kill it. Go get some fucking sales. Go start a business. Go fucking improve your business. We're always improving, y'all. That's why we do this podcast. And have a great rest of your day, everybody. Agave and Cactus Talk out.